Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and in today's episode of Dyepot Weekly, we are going to take a really long skein of sock yarn and create a self-striping type colorway. This is a 6-meter skein from Wool to Die For. It's the Platinum Sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And I've braided it like this just as a storage technique to keep it from getting tangled, because 6 meters is pretty long. Now, when I say we're creating something self-striping today, it is self-striping, but there will be a stripe of a sort of semi-solid color and then a stripe of a more speckled, variegated color. And so I thought that this would be a lot of fun. My plan is to do some wild speckles on half of the yarn, even if it sort of encroaches a little bit onto the other half. And then we will dip dye, not for like a gradient, but just sort of a dip to immersion dye half of it to create that more semi-solid stripe. So then when you knit it up, you'll have alternating more solid striped sections and speckled sections, which I think will be really pretty and completely different from anything I've created before. And before we get started, if you really enjoy the content here on the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel, subscribe, like, and make sure your notifications are turned on. I added 2 zip ties to our pre-soaking 6-meter long skein. I added one a little tight to mark the midpoint. This will tell me approximately how much I want to speckle. There's no reason why you have to divide it in this 50-50 kind of way. You could have the stripes be uneven size. I'm just going for even-ish. In this steam pan, we have just 4 cups of water, but I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of white vinegar. I am planning to play around with some pink and gray and black for this colorway today. So we will be speckling with purple pop and silver gray. The purple pop will give us some bluish speckles and then a pink halo. And the silver gray will actually give us some really nice black, or at the minimum charcoal gray speckles. It's more dilute than true black, which is why I want to use it for speckling today. And then for the more semi-solid side, we are going to go into our stock solution of some true black. So that way we have this more smottled, speckly side and this black side. Now I'm actually playing with similar colors on another 6-meter skein in a video that will likely be coming out. Well, actually I don't know the order. One will come out first, but the technique is completely different, and so I'm excited. Alright, we are kind of making this up as we go along, but I want to put half of the skein, and it's okay if there's some overlap. Here we've got our tie right there that marks the half point, and I want to spread out this yarn as much as possible because we might be able to get away with not flipping the yarn if we have it sufficiently untwisted and spread out. I haven't even started heating up yet, so this is all completely cool, and I'm going to extend this tie so I can spread things out up there. It's going to be okay if we have some white left behind, but I think that this is pretty cool. And I will say that with our 4 cups of water in here, it's still fairly deep, but we're not going to add a lot of color. I am going to go ahead and start heating things up. I imagine it'll heat up pretty quickly. And then as we wait, I will also go put on my respirator mask and safety glasses. I'm already wearing gloves, so I'll be back. And that took just about a minute. I'm going to reduce the heat to low so we remove some of that steam. Now, the first color I'm going to do is purple pop. This is a color that I know will spread, and I only want to use a little bit. So I took a tiny pinch and I'm going in with a really light hand.
Look at that bloom of the pink and how intense it is. There will be some more bluish speckles left behind all around. It's possible there won't be any white left anywhere. And, I mean, that is okay. I'm sort of really just rubbing my gloves to let a tiny bit fall in different spots. I don't have a yarn mop today, but we use just the smallest amount. Oh, wow. Oh, that was left a little more, but we just used really a small amount of color. And I'm going to go wash and dry off my glove before we come in with the silver gray. I don't mind going a bit heavier in with the silver gray to get some blackish speckles. The problem is that in general silver gray is pretty fine, and my gloves are getting a little damp, so I want to dry that back off before I go back into the dye container. It is possible to use enough silver gray to make a black, and actually I'm going to reduce the heat to low to remove some of this steam. I find that different dyes feel different when you're like speckling and moving around with them. And silver gray to me feels particularly finely milled. And it's a little bit harder to see and get it to drop. If that makes sense. But even by like just rubbing my gloves right now, little bits are falling. So we've got just some very light and fairly sharp black speckles compared to that pink spread that we got with the purple pop. I do think that I might wait, I think I might wait maybe around 10 minutes, and we'll move it and decide if I want to add more gray to the other side. But I think that this is shifted around enough that we might be okay. Okay, let's try flipping in sections and seeing. I don't see. Okay, I'm just going to pick up and we're going to relay this down, because flipping it doesn't entirely work. You know, I think we could be pretty good. I think we're pretty good. I think I'm going to leave this as it is. And now, well, I guess there's two things we need to do next. The first is sort of move our midpoint, scooch it over, and then we're gonna take the rest of the yarn, place it in our pan, and take our speckled yarn and set it aside. I do plan though, and the heat is still on low in here, I do plan to add more water into here. But I'm going to set that in a pan and set this down so that way I'll try to have that somewhere in the water. Alright, let's get some more water. I'll get another 4 cups. Okay, another 4 cups of water. This is going to give our yarn space to move around. And I have not added more vinegar yet. Hopefully we are not getting tangled at all. If possible, like that flipped up a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to want to start adding our black. Now this is still a pretty low immersion setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and dilute our black into water. So I think, well, let's start with 2 tablespoons, or about 30 milliliters of our 1% black stock solution. And I'm going to add that to 4 cups of water. Okay, our heat is still on low. Okay, so we've got a lot of dye, and we're just going to start adding it. it's okay for it to be tonal in here. Like, I don't mind if there's different depths and tones, which is why we're sort of adding this slowly. But it's also okay if we end up with something that is much more solid than the semi as well. This is just to give us a start. And you can see that it's definitely not even yet. But this is a way to spread out the dye more randomly. If I were to just dip this in a pot, it would definitely be uneven. If I were just dipping this into a pot, there would be an unevenness to it, but it would be like maybe a bigger chunk. And so this might give us some more subtle uneven qualities in here. I do want to add some more acid. Let's add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. It's a little uneven still. I think I've only added about half of the dye. Sort of adding it just in segments. The bath is not that warm currently. Okay, but I think with the amount of black dye we've used, so about, in theory, about 0.3 grams of dye for 50 grams of yarn. So maybe it's about a 0.6% depth of shade. That should give us a really nice gray. We could push it more to be black, but let's raise the heat, let this sit for 15 minutes, see how much absorbs, and then we can come back and think. But I won't mind if it's really a sort of medium to deep gray. I am quite happy with this color. It's not black. It'll be probably even lighter than a charcoal gray. It'll be a dark gray. But I am gonna go ahead, let's just do 1, 2, 3 tablespoons of white vinegar. And then if the edges of your pan aren't too hot, you can kind of stir it up by sloshing it a little bit. But do be careful not to burn yourself. But I am happy with this. As I like lean in for a closer look. My bowl, my light recently burnt out, and so I find myself looking at this, and with the like bright lights in the windows behind me, sometimes it's a little hard for me to see. But I think I'm gonna turn off the heat and let this cool off in here. I mean, the water actually looks pretty clear. True black can leave like some film sometimes. So yeah, I mean, I'll leave it in here a tiny bit and then take it out. But I think that the combination of this gray with our speckled pink is going to be really, really beautiful. Okay, let's wash this yarn. I'm leaving the center tie on just because I think it might also help things from getting too tangled. But at first look, I'm not seeing any bleeding, which is always a really nice sign. I am going to wash this with some dish soap, and this is where we could conceivably see some bleeding from the frozen. Maybe. Or the black, I suppose. But no, we're good. All right, I'm gonna rinse out the soap, put this through my spin dryer, and then hang it up to dry. I absolutely love the silver gray color we ended up with here. It is a charcoal gray, but it almost feels glazed. I'm not sure if you'll be able to appreciate it on camera because it might just look like the lighting, but you do see darker and lighter patches shining through the same strand. And let's not discount our beautiful, beautiful speckles. I love this variegated section with a tiny amount of black speckles and then these bright pops of pink and pastel pink. I think that the contrast in here is going to be beautiful. The stripes are going to be similar sized, and well, we'll go look at a swatch in a moment. It's not exact, but I think we did pretty well from just eyeballing it. You can absolutely take the time and make sure things are a little more evenly laid out, or you can make them even more uneven. The choice is yours. And now, my friends, it is time for me to go wind this into a smaller skein and knit a swatch. I haven't decided if I'm going to set this up around 2 chairs and walk around to wind it into a 4-foot skein from this multiple meter long skein, but I might also set up my warping board and line it up on there to do it. I will be doing that off camera. So in just a moment, let's look at our swatch. I am so much in love with how this yarn turned out. I don't really knit with a lot of self-striping yarn personally, but this one is so fun. I knit this swatch on US size 2.5 knitting needles. I did 40 stitches back and forth. I think the needle size is 2.25 millimeter. I'll double check that and pop it on the screen if I'm wrong. But we have got pretty consistently, I would say, about 5 rows on this swatch knit back and forth. Since it's back and forth, some areas might be a little thinner than not, that it would even out a tad more if you're working in the round. But the charcoal gray that's a little bit glazed, going back and forth with the pastel pink, with the pops of the black or really gray speckles, and the pink, the bright pops of pink, is just beautiful. I absolutely cannot wait to play around with this more in the future. I would love to do heavier speckles or to ramp up the variegated nature of one of the stripes. I think that that is really fun, especially since I'm someone who loves to do color work with variegated yarn. I love to mix a variegated yarn with a black, with a navy, and let those mixes of colors pop through. And with a self-striping yarn, you have that added possibility and that mixture. If you choose either an appropriate contrast or complementing color for the other stripe, there are so many possibilities of what you can achieve. In my opinion, this reskeined skein does look a bit like it is a self-striping yarn. Sometimes it can be hard to tell looking at things. You guys know my preference is to leave skeins as dyed, but that's not a possibility with the larger skeins. But I just love this mixture and interplay of color. And I definitely need to order more of these 6-meter skeins. Yes, I do have the capability to make long skeins myself. And that is definitely something that I will do with as many yarn bases as I want. There's only, I think, 1 base that comes in these really long skeins at Wool to Die For. But sometimes as a cost-time analysis, it is really saving for something that is otherwise a fairly labor-intensive project. Like, it would be really hard for me to scale up the production of a self-striping yarn because the limiting factor is the reskeining at the end, which unfortunately I pretty much have to do by hand. I can't really use my automated skein winder for it. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have had a blast creating this colorway, and I look forward to doing more colorways like this, or, you know, with a different twist, of course, in the future. If you like my content, subscribe, leave a comment below, and have your notifications on. You know the drill by now. But if you love the yarn I create and want to bring some home, go and check out the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. There'll be a link in the video description in the top right-hand corner of the screen. I would say 99% of the yarn that goes through my shop has been dyed in either a live stream or one of the videos that I put up on the YouTube channel. And it's just a fun way to help support the content and get some beautiful hand-dyed yarn. And now that is what I call a win-win-win. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching.